Hi, everyone. My name is Kelly Donahue Piro, and I'm the president of Agency Performance Partners down here in Rhode Island. I am so excited to be one of the presenters here for the Maine Insurance Agents Association meeting. I know things are a little different. We're doing things much more virtual these days, but the outlook is good that we're going to get back to normal in a couple months, weeks, hopefully by next year. But until then, we still want to make sure that you're getting the content that you need and the training you need to help grow your independent agency. We like to focus on things like running an agency, sales, time management, retention, and marketing for insurance agencies, as well as processes and procedures. So we're delighted to be a guest here today, where we talk about the 10 ways that we see insurance agencies hurting their sales. And this is really great because it's actually developed from our program of secret shopper calls. So we took the most recent 250-ish, give or take, secret shopper calls and kind of boiled them down into some data points. For you, some of these might resonate with you and your agency. Some of you might say, oh, we don't have that problem. To that, I would say always make sure that you're checking out and confirming with secret shopper calls, which you can purchase on our website. Or just sit back, relax, and listen to a few things where you might pick up a few good tips along the way. I want to thank the Maine Insurance Agents Association for having us once again, even during these difficult times. So without further ado, I wanted to kick this off a little differently. You're going to see our Insurance Agent Manifesto, which is the 12 things that we believe every insurance agent needs to adapt. We created that at the beginning of this year to kind of just have our battle cry. We need to be focusing on these items. So we're going to cue up the music, turn it up, get excited, and I'll be back as we dive into the content.
I'm Kelly Donahue Piro, and I'm leading the charge of making insurance agencies ridiculously amazing. You may be wondering what that entails. Ridiculously amazing agents outlast the suck of change. They enthusiastically try, even when it's uncomfortable. They're never busy and always productive, and they would never email a quote without a conversation to a prospect or client. They are consistently proactive and reject reactive strategies. They remember to slow down, to speed up, and they don't make sales a dirty word. They have a Tigger mentality, and they reject Eeyores every chance they get. They are not intimidated by having a conversation about insurance rates. They are an educator that uses knowledge as the sword to fight against price. Ultimately, they recognize the honor they have of protecting what people work hard for. If you want to become a ridiculously amazing agency, let's take the next steps together.
Well, we hope that got the training off to a motivational start. And now we're going to dive right on into the 10 ways you can boost your insurance sales without having to generate a single new opportunity. So often in insurance, we're trying to figure out how to get more leads, more leads, more leads. I often tell clients, we just might need to focus a little bit more on how to convert what we have and cross-sell it at the point of sale and generate referrals. And then typically leads take care of themselves. But I'm excited to share with you what we've learned from our secret shopper calls. So the first thing I want to do is give you a warm welcome. We know that this is probably not your first sales training experience, but you may have failed in the past to transfer the knowledge to your team and get them to change their ways. Or you might have sat in a sales training and didn't go home and do much with it. It's not your fault. There's always a lot to do, and sometimes it's just too much information, right? And many times other things get in the way. If you've been concerned with training your team or yourself and holding yourself accountable, I want to put those fears to rest. It's possible to have a sales process that everyone follows so your agency can meet its potential. Because the big direct writers all train their teams and hold them accountable to a sales process. Do you think it's acceptable at Geico to not quite quote over the phone? Or do you think that if you were at Progressive, that they would say, go ahead, email the quote, see what they say? Of course not. They've all created standards that they continuously test and refine, and that everybody has to be held accountable to. And if not, many of those direct writers relocate that team member out of the organization. But sometimes in small businesses, it's different, and a lot of times it's harder. The reality is those big direct writers are banking on the fact that most independent agents don't have time or resources to train their team. And let's be honest, for many of them, they're trying to eat your lunch. And I like lunch a lot, so we don't want that to happen. But they're wrong. It's not true. If you've ever thought that the big direct writers want you to fail, you're probably right. They would love to take the independent agency channel out and take all the business themselves. They have billion-dollar budgets. There's $8 billion spent on insurance marketing. And I think we can all agree that most independent agents don't simply have that kind of budget. So what do we do about it? So the difference is that as an independent agent, you can be louder and closer to your community than they will ever be. And we're going to empower you today with the facts that you can use to structure your agency's plan. What I know is that everybody feels better when there's a plan in place. But for many of us, we've only worked in one location or have never had an instance where we really saw a great sales plan. But that's what we're here for at Agency Performance Partners. I know you want your agency to be ridiculously amazing, and I want to show you how to do that today. So here's what we're going to take away from today. That if your agency already has a sales process in place, then you'll have additional strategies to strengthen what you have, right? Michael Phelps is swimming right now. Tom Brady's throwing a football. So let's make sure that we're constantly working on improving. If your agency has not yet built a sales process, you will leave with the 10 strategies that you must include. My goal from this session is to have you embrace the fact that the only way for your agency to grow is to install a sales process for your agency. And that the most efficient way to do this is with help. If you want to go test and refine, and that's your thing, great. But for most of us, we have a full plate as it is. It's not easy to do. And here's why I can talk about this. I've been in insurance since I was 18, and I started as a bank teller in college. I needed money for pizza and beer, so I got kind of good at the cross-selling and the teeing up to other departments. But my coworkers weren't so happy about it, typical of an insurance agency. In fact, one of the mother hens took me aside and says, "You really should knock that off. You're making the rest of us look bad." Being young and not really knowing, I kept myself small and I just minded my own business. And that cost me a job opportunity. So then I graduated and I went to work for other small businesses in the financial services arena. And they all wanted me to do the same thing. Well, can't you cross-sell? Can't you sell? Can't you take care of the customer and retain them? And I kept saying, what's the plan? Well, I figured out the plan by doing everything the wrong way, reading a lot of books, picking myself up off the ground, ended up getting pretty good at the customer service role. And then I started thinking off to myself, well, hey, what are we going to do next? Then enters in the mortgage crash where financial services got kind of messy. And I was unemployed. I got recruited back into the insurance space by a technology firm, and they were helping agencies with digital marketing. So websites, Facebook, social media. And let me tell you how different things were back then. You could put a website up and get 20 leads a month, and today it's just not the same. So what we ended up finding was that once leads were coming into an agency, people didn't know what to do with them. Most independent agents were used to referral business where they could take a week to quote it. Well, the internet was a different place. So I ran the professional services division there and got out on the road. And personally, I've been over 1,000 agencies. That company got sold to Zywave, and I went off on my own about 7 years ago to help agencies just like we're doing here with you today. And so I've seen it all. And that's why I'm very passionate about giving agencies a plan that they can follow and stick to see the results they deserve. So here's what we're going to talk about today. Our 10 strategies are: never let a lead go to voicemail. We have to be good at the why me, why your agency. We have to tell new prospects what an independent agency is, as many of them do not know. We have to work to find connection. We have to reduce the client workload, and we're going to talk about the need for deck pages. We're going to talk about our 4 and score mentality. Then we're going to lean on how we're never going to email a quote without a conversation. And I mean never. We're then going to lean on options, talking about asking for the business, and an appropriate follow-up strategy. So we've got a lot to cover on these 10 items. I'm happy if anybody has any questions. You can always find us on social media or go to our website, agencyperformancepartners.com. So if we go fast and you've got some questions, take them down. We will respond to everybody. But until then, sit back with your cup of coffee and let's get started. So how did we get these numbers? Well, these are the results from 265 secret shopper calls. They're roughly from about February 2018 to October 2020. We typically don't do that big of a span, but the reality of the situation is that there was a pandemic somewhere in the middle of that, and many agencies backed off of secret shopper calls because they were figuring out phone systems and things were just a little different during those times. But unfortunately, the average score was 34% out of 100%. So that is way below an F based on normal school standards. The highest score was 86%. Go that person, a solid B. The agency approved all the scenarios. So it wasn't like it was a scenario that wouldn't fit them. They approved them all and picked who was getting what call. So our secret shopper calls and works to make the connection. Then they complete a survey. They upload all emails, voicemails, quotes, and any documentation. And then they shoot a video on their experience. So you're not just seeing the black and white, you're seeing a little bit more of an emotional connection. And many agencies take the opportunity to look at it and then go see what the agent did in the management system. So it's a nice checks and balances. Now, there's a lot of different comments I hear on secret shopper calls from, I don't want to do that to my team. And, that seems a little overwhelming. I understand. A lot of times I take the approach of, I think that we need to be thinking more along the lines of managing our own sales process. So it's not so much, did Sally do a good job or did Henry do a good job? The reality is more, what is our process like? And are we hitting our process? Are we below process? How is that all working? So our first strategy is never, ever, ever let a lead go to voicemail. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, oh, that doesn't happen at our agency. I think it happens a lot of times, sometimes, right? But 23% of our callers were put into voicemail. And the big challenge with voicemail is for a shopper or a lead that is somebody who is really, they need to speak to somebody. They're on the shopping move. They don't have time. One of the interesting things about insurance is that most people don't want to spend much time on their insurance, and that's fair enough. So when they are looking to shop, we need to meet that demand. And I always kind of say to people, well, isn't that what we do? We sell insurance. So if someone can't buy insurance from us throughout the day at their leisure, is that a problem? It'd be like me walking into Pottery Barn and saying, can you guys come back later? We're working on the towels right now. I probably wouldn't do that. I'd go somewhere else and buy towels. I don't want to wait. And it's no different in insurance. The real challenge that we're facing, though, is many of them didn't receive a call back from days. So it wasn't just a situation of, hey, they left a voicemail and 20 minutes later they got a phone call back. It was potentially days. And most of our secret shoppers actually had to try a second time. So they got the voicemail. I don't know what happened to it, but it wasn't a high priority. And we see this a lot because there's a big rub in insurance between our sales culture or service culture. And I like to cut the middle and say, hey, we're a customer experience culture. And so whether it's new business or service, we need to be impressive every single day. And it's not one or the other. In fact, I really struggle with that idea that it's one or the other because it can't be. It's got to be both. Because statistically, website leads need to be contacted back in under 5 minutes to drive the highest closing ratio. So for a lot of agencies, a website lead comes in, it kind of goes to the bottom of the pile. When people are available, they'll take it. The problem is every moment that it ages, it becomes decreasing quality. And the second challenge you have with that decreasing quality is that then the team feels like, oh, internet leads are bad. Google leads are bad. Website leads are bad. I can't ever get them on the phone. I like to say, hey, you know what? We often don't pick up for phone numbers we don't know. We need a better plan to go about that. We are not God's gift to insurance. There's plenty of options out there. We have to fight for these customers to get their attention. And many agents have I emailed them, I called them, I never heard back. When I say, hey, that's great, but we're in a different world today where you're going to have to fight a bit harder to convert that lead. A new lead needs to be prioritized as the most important task because of the sensitivity of time. You actually have a luxury with a customer of getting back to them an extra half hour later. You don't have that with a new lead. And I think a lot of times when I say this to service team members, they get really nervous that I'm saying deprioritize service. I don't think we should deprioritize service. I think that service team managers need to be thinking of themselves like ER nurses. Everybody in that waiting room is critical. Everybody in that waiting room is pain. But there is a difference between a car crash and somebody's got a headache, right? Now, we don't know until we dive into the deep details of it all, but the car crash victim's probably going to take it because they're bleeding and there's a mess and they need to get that trauma under control. And so we have to be very cognitive of the fact that there are 8 hours in a day. And if a new lead comes in, we can prioritize it. That just means that service goes another 30 minutes delayed. And for most people with service, if it's done by the end of the day, we're all good. So I don't want everyone thinking, got to do all my service work, then I get to sales. I think that's a very dangerous place for us to live in. What we have to be doing is looking at all the work and saying, this is the next best thing to work on, like an ER nurse. You have to build a strategy that has backups to the sales team and train anyone to start a quote. I remember listening to secret shopper calls actually with an agency in Maine, and some recorded phone calls too. And someone called in, and this guy had actually called 4 other independent agents and no one could give him insurance. It was like a Friday afternoon, probably summer, probably beautiful out in Maine. There might not have been a lot of insurance agents working. And, it just so happened at this agency, I think it was commercial, and the commercial person was at lunch, and the receptionist just didn't have a great plan. Again, nobody's fault. They said, hey, yeah, our commercial person's at lunch. We probably need to deal with this. I can have her call you back. And the guy's like, this is the 5th agency I've called. Why does no one want to sell me insurance today? I'm picking up a truck or tools, or I forget what it was, something like that. And I need it today. And I literally want to give people money and no one will take it. And the funny part was the owner wasn't far away, but the front desk person didn't think to themselves, let me start getting information. Let me see if the owner wants to take this lead. They were literally kind of very black and whitely, blindly following a process. And we see that all the time in insurance. And that's something we got to break up with. We have to be looking at what's plan A, B, what are the backups here? And in all reality, even the receptionist could start a quote sheet. Hey, let me get down some information for you so that she can give you a call back, name, this, that. Everybody should at least have that quote sheet. Now, you'll find I'm not a big believer of quote sheets for the primary person, but as a backup, absolutely. We do not want that person getting off the phone. We will lose them. And that day, that person didn't really matter what the policy cost. He just wanted to give somebody his money so he could go about his business. And we had a similar situation personally where we have a race car, which if anyone wants a blue Mustang with a supercharger and a roll cage in it, come on down to Rhode Island. I'll leave the keys in it. You can take it from me. And it was getting dropped from Hagerty. It just was no longer, considered as much of a parade car as a race car, which is fair enough. And what ended up happening was the agency didn't have another option. So I started calling around. It took me 8 phone calls to even get someone to take down my information, because all they would ask is, are you a current client? Well, then we won't quote it. I'm thinking to myself, I live in Rhode Island with a race car. Like, I'm having a problem. You have the opportunity to woo me and win me over if you take a minute and help me with my number one problem. But the door was closed right in the face. And I like to say that agencies build those processes because they have fear that their team is not strong enough to get the other business. And I like to say we have to get strong enough to get that other business, not shut the door of unique things, because when you have unique policies, you definitely have other policies you want to take on. So we just have to remember what we do here is sell insurance, and sales has to become a priority in the day, not a secondary thought. Which leads me to this. In every agency, and you're going to see this slide a lot, we have to build the process. So a team of people, the ownership, leadership, a special squad has to build the process, train the team, and hold people accountable. And a lot of times we build the process, we roll it out, and then there's not enough training because it takes an adult to hear the same thing 22 times, and we don't hold them accountable, so things fall apart very easily. Next is why me, why your agency? So this is a big one for me. 85% of agents built no value in themselves, okay? So they just started kind of being a quote machine, and they didn't stop and say, this is why you should have your insurance with me. This is why I'm uniquely qualified, which to me means we have a bad habit in insurance of quoting and then selling. We want to get the quote done, and then if there's questions, we'll deal with them. But we really need to, again, go back to that idea. We need to be impressive all the time during our interactions. We buy people way before we buy a policy. Think of all the information you have to get from somebody, whether it's tax ID number, social security number, driver's license. There's so much information you have to get. And on average in America, people are going to get 3 quotes on their insurance policies. How will I ever remember you? If you don't do something unique, build rapport, stick out during the process, it's a low likelihood I'll remember you. And that is a huge challenge that we have. We have to get down to a place of realizing that the sales process should be the start of building a relationship instead of conducting a transaction. I recently read a sales book and they mapped out really great where a lot of salespeople are looking just to get the sale and then move on. And I've experienced that in my life. I understand that. But they wanted everybody to think, no, like this is a first date. Like they agree to a second date with the salesperson, but there's a whole relationship with this company. And how sales presents it, if they sell on price, service has to service on price, or if they make it a quick wham bam process and, you were the cheapest, great. But how does that set the stage for service? And so it really does need to be more of a relationship up front. Prospects don't know what we don't tell them. So if they don't know why to do business with you, we can't assume that they're going to go on your LinkedIn profile and go scour the website and say, why should I do business with this person? It's just not going to happen. And morning, agents struggle introducing themselves. So every time we break our sales process down, because we have our whole Apex sales process that we literally go into agencies and install with them, people get really stuck on building a couple sentences about themselves. And they could write it about any other team member in the room. But when it comes into why someone should buy with me, people get really tongue-tied, even producers. And it's a huge gap in the industry where we're not equipped to sell ourselves. We'd much rather sell premium, coverage, the bells and whistles. But us individually, sometimes it's like, I don't know why someone should buy insurance from me versus the other guy. And it's worth spending some time on in your agency. We do a whole course on that in our Apex sales program. And, we actually have that all recorded in our online school, which we'll talk about at the end here. And we literally sit down and say, you got to do this. Like, here's examples, but you have to have 2 or 3 sentences of why someone should buy insurance from you. Going back to that, people don't know what we don't tell them. And it's got to be conditioned into most agents. It's not necessarily organic to think to start a sales process by saying, hey, so nice to meet you. Let me just start by letting you know a little bit about how I like to operate and how we're going to take care of you today. My name is Kelly Donahue. I've been in insurance since I was 18, and I learned the value of insurance. We had a bad homeowner's claim, and I got to live in a hotel, and I didn't have to go live with my in-laws, which was great. And what I want to do is spend a little time getting to understand you so we can find the right policy within your budget and the right coverages for your family or business. Does that sound like a good plan today? That was a casual way of introducing myself, and you learned I'm a little funny. We started talking off the bat about coverage, not about price. And then on top of it all, you learned what my plan was going to be. And so we need everybody thinking like that. We should think that everybody should have a personal pitch. And you should also have one about the agency. Why should someone do business with your insurance agency? What do you do that's different? And I'm going to tell you that this is also one of those things people struggle with. But if we can't communicate why we're better than the competition, we cannot expect our customers to do that research and understand on their own. If your agency does not have this rolling off their tongue, it's an important place to just kind of stop and take a minute and work through. So if we're moving right along, the idea is you have to, again, build the process, train the team, and then hold people accountable. If you don't hold people accountable, lo and behold, they probably aren't going to use their pitch as part of the process. Next is, what is an independent agent? So this one always shocks me a bit. Almost 90% of our secret shoppers, the agent didn't explain what an independent agent was or how it could benefit the prospect. So my office right now is kind of in a cute little downtown area. And there's always people walking by. And at some point, I want to take the video camera outside and just stop people on a nice summer or spring day and just say, hey, do you know what an independent agent is? Because it's my belief that most people don't, and they certainly don't always know how it will benefit them. So if this as a whole industry is our number one selling feature, and it's all too often missed as our sales process of making it a big intention to tell people that. We shop the top carriers to find you the best coverage. We've got carriers you can't get on your own, and we're going to be here as things change. We don't tell people that, and that's our number one feature. I think we should all have a little like, bingo, 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 we have a problem, Houston. And a lot of times we just have to slow down our approach to build that rapport and explain to people why to do business with us. I see so many agents who want to speed through the quote, almost like they're trying to get people off the phone. We have a bad habit in this industry of going ahead and saying people don't want to be on the phone with us. I'm like, who says that? I don't want to be on the phone with anybody who is a wet towel or who's, interrogating me with just questions. I'm happy to be on the phone with somebody I'm learning from, engaging with, having a delightful conversation with. And we have to become better conversationalists and get rid of that baggage in our head that no one wants to be on the phone with us. But here's the thing. We should start selling from the start, not quoting, then selling. So many agents only start selling when we get objections. And this is one of those just things that makes me cringe is the client will say, oh, thank you so much, but I found a cheaper price. Let me see that deck page. They must not have the same coverage. There is no way that should ever be part of our sale. A client should know the coverage when we deliver the quote because we're presenting it to them. So in their head, they're asking that other agent that they're getting quotes from, do I have this? Is this included? The fact that we have to do that at the end is the sign of a completely broken sales process. Completely broken. So if you're having to defend your coverages at the end, I really want you to pay attention of the things that you need to do before you hand over price. Because when we're educating a client, that we're earning their trust and building confidence in them. The deals most independent agents lose are when they're close in price. They don't save the person enough money to switch, or, hey, it's between this one and the other one, and there's a $50 difference. The things we're teaching you here are going to win over that, so it's not just about price. Because we all become slimeball salespeople when we start selling if we have to defend our rate. That is when we become the used car salesman, and I know most people in insurance don't want anything to do with that. Every agency should have things scripted and rehearsed. You should be doing role playing. You should be saying, when we get this objection, this is what we should say. But all too often, it's either there's not enough time or it's awkward in the beginning and we back away from it. I love the analogy of the pilot, right? The pilot takes out the same checklist even if he's been flying planes for 30 years. Would you be comfortable flying on a plane where the pilot didn't use a checklist? I know I wouldn't. And pre-COVID, I was flying every week. So why would we trust our team the same way to say they need a checklist to go over? But you got to build the process, train the team, and hold people accountable. Number 4 is find the connection. So 55.30% of callers stated the agent treated the call like a transaction rather than a relationship. And this is one of those things that I struggle with too. When people call into an independent agency, they want a relationship. In fact, we are the least convenient way to buy insurance. I can buy insurance in my pajamas, drinking a glass of wine on a Friday night at 11 o'clock at night. With your agency, I have to call at the right time, find the right person who's not too busy to take my call, give you a whole bunch of information. Many times I'm not getting quoted over the phone. So now I've got to wait for the quote, and then we've got to go buy in coverage, et cetera. Lots of steps. So if people are calling an independent agent, it's because they want that relationship. So we must deliver that up front. We don't just deliver it at the end. But without connection, we're inviting our sales job to become harder because people will get multiple quotes. Think about the contractor. If somebody's coming to build a deck at your house, do you get 3 quotes? The answer is usually yes, because you don't trust contractors. And people go get 3 quotes on their insurance because a lot of people don't trust insurance agents because we just interrogate them and then send them an email with a quote. If we're really, truly serious about a sales process, this is an important step. But when people get multiple quotes, it decreases your closing ratio. It invites a longer sales process. The prospect buys on price rather than education or relationship. And retention can really lag on these clients, and that's something we don't want to see happen. So we need to slow down and have a defined process to educate the prospect and build rapport. So we sell first and we quote and underwrite second. And if we're selling first, we're going to find a lot of those questions that might come up that might have us turn away the lead because it's just not a good fit for us. You don't want to find those out through underwriting. You want to find those out up front to save yourself a lot of time. But guess what we have to do? Hopefully by now you know. We got to build the process, train the team, and then hold people accountable for sure. The next step is we really need to be focused on reducing the client workload. 52.7% of agents ask the caller all the questions. I call that the interrogation, right? We start at the top of our quote sheet and we just work our way down. The struggle I have with that is, one, that's very taxing on the client. I actually don't know the year of my roof, even though I know it was repaired in the last or replaced in the last 5 years. I don't remember the amount. But you need to use technology to verify information. So pulling up the property on the tax assessor's website, Zillow, or many carriers have back-end information now that's funneling in. So as opposed to taking out your quote sheet and just grilling them, let's confirm information. Like, oh, I have your house up on Zillow. Very adorable house. I love it. Tell me, is this the type of heat you have? Excuse me. People don't want to be interrogated. Create a process that's fueled by technology instead. And we always say to people, and this is a sticky point that people get into fights with me about, fights. Don't ask for a deck page. They're often wrong and it's an unnecessary step. Okay? We do a renewal review call program where we get agencies to call every client annually for a formal review. And yes, it works. It decreases work. People swear by it. Right now, we're at 88% of frontline team members would not go back to being reactive, okay? So before you judge that, let's get that out of the way. But in doing that, in your own book of business, they find so many inaccuracies. And I know that the intention is I want to make sure the coverages are the same. I lean on the idea that those coverages may be wrong. And what I need to do is understand the client to pick their insurance for them because that's why they're calling me. They're not calling that person or they don't want to do business with that person potentially. Let me scrub it, get all the information, make sure it's done right. And remember, from one to the other, the client doesn't disclose it. You can't insure it. So you need to ask a lot of great questions, but you're not necessarily responsible for everything under the sun. And my challenge with the deck page is, I know if I run an agency and someone called in saying, I want a deck page, I'm putting the brakes on everything and saying, what? They're going to leave remarketed, reshopped, and stuck with me, and you're going to lose a sale. Many people don't have their deck pages that handy. And so you have to understand that it's nice to have. And if somebody does have it and that's awesome, take it, have them snap a photo and email it to you right then and there. But don't put more work on the customer. People value their time so much today, and they don't want to have to take extra unnecessary steps most days. But this goes into what? We got to build the process, train the team, and hold people accountable. So now we're at our Abe Lincoln, four score, and 17 years ago. That was wrong, but whatever it is, I'm not the biggest history person in the world. 55.5% of agents provide exactly what the caller requested. So what this means is if I call in and say I want to quote on auto, they delivered auto. They made no attempt to talk about renters or home. So our secret shoppers are intended or instructed to not present another line. If they're asked, they will give the information. So you can see over half just took it and ran, and that's a big problem. We always like to think of we should be taking every new opportunity as the 4 and score method, which is shoot to quote 4 lines on every single account. And you can even make it a challenge, right? Trying to get to a place where you could say, hey, how many did we get today? Excuse me for a second there. We need the coffee to kick in a little bit more. The bottom line is you need very little information to quote umbrella in life. I don't know why we don't insert more of these quotes in there. Now you might be saying, oh, I'm not life licensed. You can just do the preliminary, even quote grids and say, here's some preliminary options. But teams need scripts, training, and role playing on how to get to that other key line. How are you going to pivot? For many times for people who are not as trained as sales, but it's part of their job, they're uncertain how to ask, what to expect, how to make it work. We say expect a no and overcome it with late night DJ voice and questions. So just expect someone to say no. Oh no, just quote my home. Okay. Hey, I just want to confirm something. So many of our clients want us to get the most competitive pricing. Do you want me to rule out the largest discount I have? Again, question, calm voice. Well, no, I don't want that. Well, if we can take a look at your other policy, I can combine them and we can at least take that as an option. So you'll know what it would cost if we combine them and what it would cost independently. Wouldn't you agree we should take a look at that? When people get trained how to say that, that helps increase the cross-selling so much, makes the team feel comfortable doing it, and ultimately the client's happier because now they're getting all the discounts that they deserve. So you have to kind of get your team into having these conversations because otherwise really what we're doing is we're quoting it and hoping that we sell it if we win on price. Which goes into this, right? Build the process, train the team, and hold people accountable. I do want to just take 1 second and note one thing. Every day at Agency Performance Partners, every workday, I shoot a video with just a 3-minute training topic. This could be on sales, marketing, service, processes, time management. And I really encourage you go to our website and sign up for those. We send an email recap every Friday, but if you like us on social media, follow us on YouTube, you'll get a daily update on it. And the nice thing about that is that it takes some of that training off of you. You know, I think sometimes training, the hardest part is what do I say? What do I coach? What do I teach? What's the content? Now you have some that you could just play in a meeting or send out to the team. But we've been doing it for over a year now, and we had done a lot of videos in the past. So on our website, we actually have over 700 blogs. So you can always go to our website, go to the blog, and just hit search as well. And there's probably an answer to one of your questions that you can use for team training. So if you're struggling on the training side, go sign up for those videos. And then also make sure that you're checking out our website if you ever need any training materials. We probably have you covered. The next one is number 7. Oh, this one is one of my favorite. It's also one of our most watched videos, actually, which is never email a quote without a conversation. I can't tell you how often we see agents just email quotes. They take the information, they email it off and say, have a nice day. You, client, go try to understand this very complicated document. And again, they're coming to us because they want a relationship. And when it comes down to explaining the policy, we're on our own, or call me if you have any questions. Well, the hardest part about that is I bought insurance for, let's just say, 19 years. And if I was a teacher or I was a consultant for dry cleaners, let's just say, I wouldn't know what I'm looking at. I wouldn't know what water sewer backup is or EPLI coverage. And so you're leaving this on the onus of the client. And when people have purchased something for so long that they don't understand, a lot of times they're embarrassed. They don't know what to ask. And so we're asking them to do a lot more work than I think we should. I think that we should be very proactive in explaining the policy to show our value. But here's the shocking statistics, I suppose. I love this. I think every agency should work towards it. In our time management course in our online school, which we referenced a little earlier, we actually have a whole section on quoting both remarkets and new business over the phone. And we actually have a role play video we did of me getting quoted over the phone to show people that it is efficient and effective if you can get it down pat. But that does drive the highest closing ratio because here's the thing. Most people just want insurance off their list of things to do. And there are some statistics that say that 45% of the time the client's going to go with the person that gets them the quote the fastest that solves their need. So even if they gave 3 people their information, the first one that comes back that solves their money, they're probably going to say yes to 45% of the time, which is almost half. So speed is your friend. Here's the problem. 45% were just emailed a quote. Here you go. And maybe they were emailed a quote and left a voicemail, but we don't agree with just emailing and leaving a voicemail either. And the bigger problem that you'll see right there is almost 31%, well, almost 32% never even got a quote. So the secret shopper gave them all of the information, social security number, driver's license, anything that they needed. And lo and behold, what happened was no quote ever came back after 2 weeks. So you could see how that's a big challenge, right? So we have this news alert. Quoting over the phone is the number one driver of selling. People prefer it. A lot of times agents think, people don't have that kind of time. I said to them, you know what? You actually don't know how long it takes to quote over the phone until you've done it over the phone. It actually can be a lot more efficient because you're talking to the client, you're getting information, you're not writing a quote sheet down to type it in. And honestly, if you're doing direct entry, it's not that much longer to firm up information. So a lot of it is more fear, uncertainty, and doubt on the agent's end because it's new. But again, if you're interested, check out our time management course in our online school because we tackle that. When we email a quote, it makes it all about price. And this is probably why I'm so very strong in this matter. I actually tell clients before they even start working with me, I'm like, I'm just going to be honest with you. If you want me, I can't support that. So if I'm not your trainer, it's okay. We'll undo this whole thing right now. I will never be in support of emailing a quote before a conversation. I know that there's some agents out there that say people want to look at it, and I struggle with that. I say, I think we think people want to look at it, but most people want to be told what to do and want to, if they've built trust and rapport with you, then you're in a good spot. When my mom looks at the quote, she doesn't know what water sewer backup is. So we've confused her. And when people are overwhelmed, they tend to lean on purchasing on price. Every quote needs to be tracked and traced too. People do miss quotes. So there needs to be some tracking system, whether it's in your management system through a third party like Agency Zoom or any of the other technologies out there. I don't even care if it's a spreadsheet to get started with, but every new quote needs to be checked in to confirm they're out the door, because looking at that 31% never got a quote, that's a problem. Maybe we don't need more new leads. Maybe we need to actually quote the ones coming into the agency. But that goes into the process, the team, and the accountability of what are the expectations from ownership. If we can get those things down, we win. Number 8 is options. And I don't think that we were ever really trained that well on this in insurance, but 75% of the callers stated that the agent didn't discuss any options. And options are brilliant, right? It gives you a soft yes. So an option would be like, hey, I worked up these 2 different ideas for you. Maybe one is 100, 300 auto, the other is 250, 500 with an umbrella. Or maybe there's a third option with an umbrella in it. And you can kind of go through and say, here's what I've come up with. Plan A is this, plan B is this. For $8 more a month, you get all this. And why that's so great is, one, you can make it about coverage, and it's so much easier to explain a policy when it's A versus B versus us puking up the information to a client of, here's what I recommend, and we lose them. Where you could say, the first one I want to look at has this, the second one has this. What do you think is best for you and your family? You're going to leave with a more educated client, someone who trusts you, and they can visually see between A and B. It's not just like take it or leave it. It's which one are you going with, which gives you that soft yes. People love choice too. One of the things we really learned through the pandemic was choices were taken away from people, and that gives you a lot of anxiety and stress. I'm not empowered to make a choice that's best for me. I need to sit home, or the kids aren't going to have a choice to put them in school. And it's the same with insurance. When we can give people choice, they feel empowered, and they feel like, oh, well, at this agency, I can always call them because there is a choice. There are different options, and you're displaying that through your sales process. We're not going to have to go, do you like it or not? It's which one do you want to go ahead with? And this allows you to shine during the conversation because you can literally go through and kind of organize things a bit better. But here's the deal. You really shouldn't email 4 coverage lines and 2 to 3 options to a prospect. You can, but you can imagine that email is mind-bending. And we got to remember, people on average get 3 quotes when shopping. So if they can get 3 quotes with you or 3 options with you, you then empower them to say, okay, I've got 3 options with Kelly. Let me see which one I want to work with. Now you can pick the options based on the client and the carrier, et cetera. But I want everybody to kind of get in that mindset of options, 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 not just here's your quote, take it or leave it. It's the cheapest I have. Because I don't always want to give them the cheapest I have. I might want to say, hey, that carrier's really, really aggressively pricing right now, but I know it's going to happen next year. So I want to give them these two options. Give the client the option. Do they want to save a lot of money now, but go into a variable next year? Or do they want to go with something that's still economical for them? And that carrier's probably not going to take huge rate. You have to give the client options. That happens when we have a conversation and we're not so scared about rate. Again, that goes into building the process, training the team, and then dun, 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 holding people accountable. Next up is asking for the business, right? 55% of people got emailed a quote. Hard to ask for the business. Usually it's just like, let me know if you have any questions. I'm here for you. That's not really a sales process. That's a quoting process. And then 37% of people said, think about it and let me know, which makes my heart hurt. Every time I hear that, I think a little piece of me dies inside. The reason I really get sad about that is if I've done my job, there should be nothing to think about. I should have everything all squared away for you. You shouldn't have to think any harder about anything. And then I always think to myself, okay, well, think about it and let me know. Is the client going to print that out and go home on their dining room table and lay out every piece of the quote with a highlighter and a glass of wine and decide what to do? I'm sorry, that's just not going to happen. And so what is there to think about? We need a better strategy. And again, most people just never been given a plan on what to say. So you need to be thinking 95% of the work is done at this point. We're at the finish line. Let's finish this. And remember, think about it and let me know is literally the worst closing statement I can think of. Just not good. But you can also say something, where can I send your application to be finalized? Remember, if we gave them at least two options, now we have that. We can say, oh, they like option B. Where should I send it? This is just kind of telling people the next step. That's all that it is. And then you just want to zip your mouth. Be quiet. One of the hardest things to do. If you want, you could put your phone on mute so that you can speak and the client can't hear you. But silence is a powerful, powerful tool in insurance. And so we want to make sure that you're using that as a weapon. Now, they could be looking at this and be thinking, oh, you know what? I'm going to pay in full, I think. Or which credit card should I give them? Or what day do I want to get this started? Or, this is interesting. Do I really want plan A or do I want plan B? So let them have a minute here and just kick back, think about vacations or what you're going to do with your commission check. And they'll come back and they're either going to give you an objection or they're going to give you a yes. But you want that objection, which is a whole separate training we do so that you can work through it. If you don't have an objection, you do not have a way to work on it. If it's, okay, I'll think about it, guess what? You just got off the phone without any real information that you can use to benefit you. But we got to build that process, train the team, and then hold them accountable, of course. And then there's follow-up. Again, this is a huge area I see of opportunity in agencies. There is no follow-up plan. So it's not follow-up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then close it and move on. It's whatever you think. Or it depends. That's my favorite word in insurance. I've heard it depends so many times this month. And I'm always like, well, what does it depend on? I'm not sure. So what I really encourage people to do instead is say, I would much, much rather have it go into a standard follow-up. So 45% of our agents or our secret shoppers got one follow-up, but almost 60% got none. And it was almost nothing after that. We like to say follow up for 2 weeks. 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. After 2 weeks of being ghosted, it's over. Let's just move on with our lives. And we say your number one objection today is actually getting ghosted, which means we have to do a better job. We have to fulfill our own destiny. And we have to really educate clients on why they need to stay focused on this. We need to ask for the professional courtesy of a no. But if you get ghosted, it means you didn't build enough rapport, you didn't catch them and hook them enough. They literally didn't even care about you enough to tell you no. And that's a problem. But we need a clearly outlined tracked follow-up system. So we usually like to say, hey, every other day for 2 weeks and then close it. And we do what we call the breakup. Now, the breakup is, hi, I'm just calling for one final time. Been trying to reach out to you to get your insurance set up. At this point, if I haven't heard back, sometimes it's because you went somewhere else or it's just fallen off your radar screen. If I don't hear back from you by end of day Friday, I'm going to have to close your file. If you want to get this going, please call me between now and then at this number. And you will see like 40% of people, don't close my file. They like pop their head out of the ground like a little groundhog. Like, what? And some people need a kick in the pants. They need that to be taken away from them. So when you do that, you get some of those. Or some people will just tell you, yeah, I went somewhere else. You close the file and you're good. This is also our opportunity to retarget that opportunity at renewal next year. So we're kind of planting seeds for the future. But here's what I know. In so many agencies, people are too busy to follow up. Oh, I got busy. I didn't follow up. I had a call with an agency in Texas, and they do a lot of real estate transactions, which is great. I said, hey, how's the cross-selling going? And she goes, oh, I'm too busy for that. I'm like, you're too busy to get their auto? Now, in this part of Texas, they don't typically combine the home and auto for a discount, but that mentality is stuck in her brain. And I just always grew up like, you cross sell at the point of sale. Like, it's not optional. And we're trying to rework a lot of that with that team because it shouldn't be like that. But follow-up should be scripted so they don't sound like we're bothering people. When I tell people you have to call people to follow up twice every other day for 2 weeks, people are like, what am I going to say? I'm going to sound like a stalker. I'm saying, first of all, they're not your client. So anything you do is just helping along. We like to say something along the lines of, hi, it's Kelly. I'm just following up on the quote. I know you're going to talk to your spouse, checking in to make sure that happens. And I want to get this policy going for you. If I don't hear back from you today, I'm going to call you back on Wednesday. Hey, it's Wednesday. Haven't heard from you. Want to check in, make sure that we get this going. Quotes, unfortunately, do not last forever. And so we need to, if you're interested, we should have a conversation. Please give me a call back today. If I don't hear from you by Friday, I'm going to check in on you again. And if you just do that, you're kind of breadcrumbing the situation. But your follow-up should be scripted, outlined, and consistent. Everybody on the team should not be following up in a different way. So those are our 10 tips. Let's kind of go through this again. You got to build the process, train the team, and then hold the team accountable, right? So let's kind of put a bow on this as we get to the next steps. So here's what I want to know. Did I hit my goal to have you embrace that the only way for your agency to grow is to install a sales process into the agency? And that the most efficient and effective way to do this is with help. I'm sure you don't want to do this all on your own. And it's actually very awkward to secret shop your own people without using an outside service. So if we've gotten through that, let's take a look at what's next. This might be how you're feeling right now. You took notes on this presentation to remember all the items you want to bring home to your team. But you may also be frustrated that your agency may be no different than these statistics. We do see that quite a fair amount. You're constantly putting out fires. There might be low morale in the team, and it seems like only you get this big picture that we talked about today. It may feel scary to think about the process of taking your notes and transforming them into change at your agency. Are you going to get the look of death when it says quote over the phone or don't email the quote? That's what's going to happen. That's what we want to avoid. Maybe in the past you avoided issues or duct taped them, but there's a feeling that all of this is harder than it should be. You may even worry about holding people accountable because they may leave and finding people is hard. Who's got time to train people, find new people? Last time we did it, it was exhausting. So we kind of stay with people even if they aren't the best for the agency. You may also be thinking this, time. Everyone in my agency is busy. Let's face it, there's never a good time to do anything. Waiting for the perfect time just won't work either. Leave. People will leave if we change, if we ask them to do this and hold them accountable and give them a sales goal. If you do one more thing, people will leave. And it's hard to find people, or people will have to melt down and then we're no better off. We've often seen many agencies where sometimes the frontline team is so overwhelmed that they stage almost a coup. We're not doing that. We can't do that. And I think you have to be cognitive of how to present things the right way to people, but also make sure that you are very clear on your agency and what you want to accomplish. Because ultimately, as an owner or a leader, you're the only one that can get you there. Buy-in. You may have tried things like this before and no one has bought in. It's a waste of time, money, and frustration. So it's nice. I want to do it, but we can't get our team to do it. And too much. With COVID-19 and everything going on in the world, it all just seems too much. It's easier temporarily to do nothing and ignore the problem. These are the top 4 reasons we see agencies struggle with change or doing something differently. But here's what I can tell you. I've been through the same thing with hundreds of insurance agencies. The reality is there is actually a big cost to doing nothing. And the harsh reality is that without being addressed, the problem only gets worse. Either you're running the agency or the agency is running you. I've learned the best time to do anything is right now because hope's not a strategy. I wish it was. I've got lots of wishful, hopeful thoughts, but that won't get my business to be really where I want it to be. So here's the 3 key questions to ask yourself. Do you believe your agency would grow faster with a more defined and polished sales process? Question 2. Do you believe your team needs additional training, scripts, accountability, and structure to reach your agency's sales potential? And question 3, do you believe your agency needs to track every lead from start to finish so you're empowered with facts, not feelings, on your sales process? So take a moment and think about these questions. You'll actually get a copy of this PowerPoint presentation. And I'm going to put my email up in a few minutes. You can actually email me directly, and we are happy to send it along to you. So stay tuned. So let me ask you a question now. How many of you are excited about what we just talked about, like Carlton there? And how many of you are overwhelmed because we've covered so much, like Julia Roberts there drinking? It's one or the other, right? So think about it this way. Usually people fall into two buckets, and both have challenges. You can come in so excited to the agency, be like, we're going to do this. It's going to be great. Or you can shut down and do nothing. But really, we probably need to be somewhere in between with a strategic plan of how to get a sales process, roll it out, and hold people accountable versus this is what we're going to do, guys, or I'm going to go hide back under the covers. So if you'd like a copy of this presentation, email me. There's my email address on there, or you can go to our website and fill out any contact form. Just let us know what presentation you're looking for, and we're happy to get it over to you so you could share with your staff. Anything that, questions, you can always email them in too. We're happy to do that. And the $1 million question is, if you had a successful sales process embraced by your entire team, what would that be worth to you? What would be different? Would your life be better? Would your life be easier? What could make things much, much better in your agency? And that's what we have. I'm going to take a moment just to walk you through our online school so that you can see some of our sales training. And because you're a member of the Maine Independent Agents, you're actually going to get a discount. So if you'd like to see that, hang tight for just 1 second and we'll be with you. Thank you so much for allowing me to be part of the Maine Insurance Agents Association event. We couldn't be more thrilled to keep giving great content and education during these different times. We do want to let you know that as a member, you actually get 25% off of our online school by just using the promo code meagents.com. If you're interested, you can go to our website, agencyperformancepartners.com, and actually go under shop, and then go to Agency Performance Pack. That's our online school. And from here, you can learn a little bit more about the school or purchase right here. And it's $245 a month as a subscription. But with Maine Agents, you get 25% off of that. And it'll give you a little bit more information. But our time management course, sales training, retention, reducing remarketing, and converting inbound calls into opportunities is all included. And we're in the process of revamping our time management course as well. Every quarter, we add something new in there just for you. So let us know how we can help. We hope to welcome you as new students in our online school.